Ciao.
1, 2,
3, 4.
Prejudice. No. Ignorance. No. Bigotry. No. Illiteracy. No.
Ciao.
1, 2,
3, 4. 1.
Prejudice. No. Ignorance. No. Bigotry. No. Illiteracy. No. Count.
3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2.
What's up, everybody? This is Professor Branch, and this is on Janet Jackson, Race, Gender, and Wardrobe Malfunctions. This is our third or fourth week together. I'm losing track, but today we're talking about Rhythm Nation. We're going to keep it sort of light and tight. We're going to show some clips, talk about the album. Welcome to people who are not in my class at Goucher, who are just joining us to talk about Janet Jackson. Welcome to my students who are watching. So tonight we're going to talk about the music, talk about Rhythm Nation in particular, because I think it's a pivotal record in Janet's career. And I am excited that I get a chance to teach a class all about Janet Jackson. We're going to talk about all this stuff with sort of her, the wardrobe malfunction is in the class title, and about race and all that kind of stuff. But within that, we can't lose sight of the fact that we're talking about music, right? Someone who was a real artist who performed and wrote songs and did things that were just as an artist incredible. And I just want to celebrate that. Rhythm Nation is one of my favorite Janet albums. We're going to talk about the album, primarily what I like this to be for, if you are of my age, you are around, you understand the impact of this album before my students who may not. This is sort of a primer to kind of put them in a place where they get a sense. So my first concert, where I think I may have mentioned before, was Rhythm Nation concert in, what year was that? 1990, March 1990, Madison Square Garden. Oh my God, I'm revealing my age. I don't care. I still look good. And it was amazing. And this was the first tour coming off of having had sold millions of albums with Control, but not going on tour. And then coming back out with Rhythm Nation, and then getting the full weight of a promotional tour. I'm going to share you some clips, some things that I think it'll be fun to look at. I look back at some old footage and kind of talk through kind of where Janet was. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my other screen to I don't have a producer hitting these buttons for me. This is a one-man band, just like my podcast and everything else. So we are going to look back at some of what kind of becomes the foundation where she kind of has this breakout success with Control. And then Rhythm Nation shows up. And just to give you some background, allegedly, I wasn't there, but from historical record, the label wanted Janet to follow up Control with another album that hit similar themes about independence, and kind of maybe weave it into stories about her family and kind of do like a sequel to Control. I don't know how true it is that the album was to be called, what was it? Scandal. They wanted the album to be called, and she said no. And she decided she wanted to do a record that kind of spoke to what she was feeling and thinking about at the time. And when you think about Rhythm Nation, especially if you are not somebody who's really into sort of the whole discography and into Janet Jackson, you immediately think of sort of the powerhouse videos, especially Rhythm Nation and the routine from Rhythm Nation and possibly Miss You Much. But there were 7 top 5 singles off of that album, 4 #1 hits. There were a lot of songs off that album, and we're going to talk about a few of them. I opened the show with one of my favorite songs called The Knowledge. And I think that song in particular speaks to a little bit of why Janet Jackson is an icon and why we're still talking about her today. Just some of the lyrics off of The Knowledge, it's sort of expressing sort of like a message of like, don't get left behind, kind of, seek the knowledge, which, is a powerful statement, especially when you're talking to people who are young at the time. Janet's a young woman talking to people who are young. You're telling people to kind of go after and seek knowledge and to think for themselves. And if you're talking about Black audiences in particular, one thing that is often kept from us is knowledge about certain things. And this is a song of empowerment, of being aware. So going back to the label, they wanted to follow up to Control, something that still had that funk, something that still had that flow of Control, but also was sort of mainstream. But here comes Janet with Rhythm Nation, which is talking about social issues, talking about justice, talking about the lyrics about drugs and homelessness and babies not eating, and like up alongside songs about love will never do, come back to me, and it all works, right? And that first song I showed, The Knowledge, I just really love the video, love the power of the message, and we'll get to this later in this particular session. What I love is that song is pulled from, that video is pulled from what was called at the time a telemusical, and I still have my VHS copies, a 30-minute music video with Janet. There's a whole storyline where there's several videos, and Rhythm Nation and Miss You Much and a couple of other songs are pulled. Those smaller videos are pulled from this larger telemusical, which is what they called it for Rhythm Nation. If you're my age, you might have your VHS tape. You might have watched it on MTV or BET when they aired it back in the day. At the time, again, we had seen, Michael with Thriller kind of just sort of completely flip what a music video is on its head, right? So we already have that. And then now we have, Janet at this point also doing the same thing with Rhythm Nation, creating this long form music video, which won a Grammy that following year for best long form video, where it's telling a story, right? And it's connecting the songs, and also giving her an opportunity to shoot all the music videos, or many of them at once, freeing her up to do other things during the promotion of the album, like tour. It cost $1.7 or so million to make, which at the time, there were some movies that cost that much to make. Independent films, sometimes didn't have those kind of budgets. So that was a significant amount of money to spend on a promotional long form video. Dancers, sets, sort of great cinematography. And it was something new. We hadn't really seen a thing like that before, especially coming from a Black woman artist. It was groundbreaking. And when you think about sort of the connections between Janet and artists of today, what we see now happening with artists, where they have more, no pun intended, where they have more control over their artistry, they're making these sort of connected pieces where they can release all of their music at once. They can release all these visual images at once. And it kind of calls back to a time like when you have Janet doing Rhythm Nation, where she's putting together 3 or 4 songs at once, and then following that with these singles, right? Some of which are pulled from the album, from that video, and some of which are being pulled from the album. And if you look at her and make that direct line to Beyonce, you see that connection where you have 2 Black women creating imagery and music and putting together packages like, let's say, Lemonade, right? And then Rhythm Nation, where they are sort of controlling their narrative, leading the art form in a way, doing something that other people are not doing at the time in a way then that other people follow, right? So often when we talked about in the first class about Janet being underrated, that is part of it too. It is this idea that when we're talking about artists of today, we're not often citing her as, we hear Janet influence and we hear people talk about, Janet was an artist they like her dancing, that sort of thing. But I think it's more than that. I think there's also sort of the ways in which she promoted her work, the way she took control of the narrative around her imagery, I think it's really important to look at. And for my students who are going to do projects in the class, I think it's important for you to kind of start thinking about what you see in these music videos, these songs, these promotional images happening at a time in like the early 90s, late 80s, what you see there that might have been the beginnings for what we see now for artists like a Beyonce, or even I'm going to stay in the Knowles family, or Solange, when you look at when she's putting together her images, where she kind of does a collection of songs and images to create a visual project to communicate the message of an album. Those things are all connected together. And it's kind of fun when you start to kind of piece that together and realize the real impact that Janet Jackson had on the industry. So let's just look at some stuff. You don't have to listen to me yammer on all day today. I just want to kind of show you some stuff, and I can show you better than I can tell you. So I'm going to rock with a couple of pieces. So here we go. Hopefully this works. If it freezes, we'll keep it going. So take a look at this.
5, 4,
3, 2, 1.
Rhythm Nation is all over the world. More than a video artist, Janet thrives on live performances. Her premiere tour, the most successful in history, sold out on 4 continents, crossing all boundaries of culture, age, and race.
We are a part of the Rhythm Nation.
It's wonderful to achieve, and it's especially wonderful when someone so bright and blessed with talent uses those achievements to elevate us all.
In complete darkness, we are all the same. It is only our knowledge and wisdom that separate us. Don't let your eyes deceive you.
Tonight, Janet Jackson's achievements include no less than 8 major awards. The #1 Hot 100 singles artists, the #1 R&B artist, the #1 R&B singles artist, the #1 R&B albums artist, the #1 dance singles artist, the #1 club artist, and both the #1 rhythm and blues album and the #1 pop album of 1990. Not since Michael Jackson's Thriller has an artist dominated the field so completely, and never before in history has a woman won this unprecedented number of awards. All this at the tender age of 24. Ladies and gentlemen, the remarkable spirit of Rhythm Nation, Miss Janet Jackson.
So Janet Jackson is 24 at this point. You hear Danny Glover say that no one else has dominated the field in this way since her brother Michael. #1 R&B, #1 pop, #1 dance. 8 awards that night. It was the #1 selling album of the year. Had 7 top 5 singles, 4 #1s. You just hadn't seen it. You just hadn't seen it before. And I think it's important to think about not just sort of what we see in music videos and the technical skill, and then the sort of scandal that happened with, the incident at the Super Bowl, is that here's an artist that is dominating music for a period of time across R&B, dance, and pop fields. And what's been interesting in listening to my student responses, my students have been submitting music videos where they videos where they respond to sort of the lectures that I'm doing, the podcasts. And one of the things that I'm hearing in some of the written responses, emails, and some of the videos is that people know Janet because they're young, right? My students, you guys, and those of you who are listening, you guys are young. They know Janet as an artist. They know her as an icon. They remember songs from when they were young, things that were on the radio. I had a couple students say that they didn't realize that some of the songs that they used to sing along to were Janet Jackson. They know who she is. They know her as an icon, but they did not know. And I had several students say they had no idea that she had the tremendous impact that she had. Because when we talk about the top artists of the 80s and 90s, a lot of times we hear Madonna, Prince, and Michael, and we're not hearing Janet's name among that list. And they're starting to question, why is that, right? They're starting to think about, why is this particular artist, one who so clearly was dominating, even at the peak of her career. We're looking at, if you go look at old reviews, and maybe I'll post some, if you look at old reviews, people are hesitant to give her full compliments, right? It's like we see the talent, but, there's a lot of, sort of hesitation to give her full due. They love what they're seeing, but they can't say it. And of course, then a lot of the music critics were white men who had been for years primarily reviewing, music and been the barometers of what is good and bad, and largely favored rock music. And she was not doing that. And they were trying to figure out where to place her. But if you look at how she dominated in sales, and how she was able to sort of have that sort of impact. What it should tell you, if you're just now coming to Janet, is that this is somebody doing something that is unique, um, that is special, that we have to kind of put into context. So when we're talking about what happens later in the career, you have to know how insane it is that somebody who was at this level was then able to be disregarded by the industry. And I'm trying to queue up another video because I want to kind of give you these visuals, especially I'm enjoying speaking to the world, but for my students who I'm bringing into the fold, I want them to be able to understand the magnitude of the career, not just as sort of like an icon without context, but also just who she is, I think is important. Because then I think by the time we get to what happens later, you're like, how does that happen? How? There are answers to that, but I think it gives a framework, for how big of a deal it was for Janet to literally be, for the plug to be pulled from a career that was as significant as hers. And I say pulled, not like people stopped caring, but corporate culture pulled the plug in terms of radio airplay and exposure and being banned from the Grammys and those sorts of things, where at a time pre-social media, you need those things to promote your record. So again, just kind of giving you a sense of the magnitude. Hang in there. We're going to play another video. If it queues up, I'm going to keep talking while it does what it does. Let's see. Got it.
Janet sold
Here we
5
go.
million copies of her last album, Control, without ever setting foot on stage. So you can imagine how the excitement is built for her first ever concert tour.
When I was 17, I did what people told me.
If Janet Jackson has taken control of anything, it's ticket buyers across America. Her tour is the hottest show of the year so far, having sold out virtually everywhere it's gone on sale. So why did she wait so long to finally go on the road?
To get what I want. A lot of people said, oh, she must be scared or this and that, and it wasn't that at all. I just wanted to wait till we had more songs under our belt before going out to give a full show, a complete show.
It's no surprise that the show features lots of serious dancing, and you may recognize some of the moves by Janet and her 6 dancers, but not all of them.
We've changed some things. We've kept most of it. I mean, some of the things I did back then were dances that were out at that time. So to do those same dances, it's like going back in time. It's like, God, she's late. That's just so old. So some of those I can't do because I think they'll probably laugh at me.
She voices her opinion all the time of, things that what she wants to do, which makes it easier on all of us. If we know the idea that she wants, we're able to make it come alive a little bit easier that way.
Of course, now that she is on the road, some people will be tempted to compare Janet's show to that of another Jackson, especially since she's brought much of the same staff from Michael's last tour out on the road with her.
They are definitely 2 different artists. They are very much the same in that they are both very knowledgeable and exact artists, in that they have an idea of what they would like to present to their audience. They're very sure of what that idea is, and they work towards that end.
And the only reason why they're going to compare is because we're brother and sister, and we both dance, and we both, our music is the same. It's dance music.
But Janet's music is no longer only about dancing. In Rhythm Nation, the album and tour, there's a more serious message.
I know this album won't change the world, but it has had effect on certain lives out there. And to be exact how many, I don't know, but I hope that it will continue to for years and years and years to come.
She's trying to say that all people are equal and that nobody's different.
Yeah, you know, it's like, hey, love your brother. Unity, peace to the world. That's right, Mom. Peace and chicken grease, you know what I'm saying?
Well, at least 15,000 people in Miami are now converts to the Rhythm Nation. From the looks of things tonight, Janet Jackson could not have picked a better place to start a world tour that's going to keep her on the road for 6 months. And you can bet we'll be with her most of the way. I'm John Norris.
So, you know, what we have is an artist who breaks out with control. And we know that story. We've discussed it in class. If you don't know anything about Janet Jackson, you know that particular story. And then following control, we have Rhythm Nation come, and the label is scared that this socially conscious message isn't going to appeal to the audience that they wanted to appeal to in the same widespread way. As it turns out, they were wrong. You know, it did even better than expected, did better than control. Again, this is somebody doing exactly what they want to do, talking about race and being a woman, talking about being a young person. I mean, she's, again, like you heard Danny Glover say, she's still a young woman. She's 24 when she's accepting the awards for Rhythm Nations. That means she's in, 21, 22, maybe 23, recording Rhythm Nation, this album that has sort of become this iconic thing. And, I remember when I went to the tour, what I was struck by was being in a space where there were so many people. Just ignore me as I produce the show with two computers, squinting in these glasses. I haven't been to the eye doctor because I'm afraid until I get my vaccination. So I can't even see. I'm making it work. I keep it real. But stay with me. So I was blown away by how many people there were in Madison Square Garden, how diverse it was. And in a really corny way, how for that moment that we're in that space, it does feel unifying. We're all there to see this woman do her thing. And it doesn't matter kind of what background we have, where we come from, we're all kind of in this space. And it is great when you have that kind of energy and an artist is able to bring people together in that way. Just to give you some background on the tour, again, even if you were somebody who was around during this era, you may not have really understood the impact of Rhythm Nation at that time. This is her first leading tour. She ended up going on tour for 9 months. Chucky Booker was the musical director and opening act. I saw Chucky when I did when I went. Johnny Gill opened up some dates and sold out. Pretty much every venue sold out. And for that year, for the tour, she was, I think, the number 5 tour of the year, about $30 million in ticket sales. And she was the only female artist in the top 10 in tours for that year. Again, speaks to the impact of this woman, of this Black woman breaking out in the music industry. 2 million people showed up for the tour, and it is still, and I double check this, and it looks to still be true. She is still the Rhythm Nation tour is still the most successful debut tour for an artist in history. This was a big album. This was a big tour. You have dance music, you have slow songs, you have mid-tempos, you have socially conscious lyrics, you have love songs, you have a concept video album that aired on television. Like, we used to watch music videos, like, for certain artists, Janet, Michael, maybe Madonna, and a few other people. Music videos would debut, and you would sit around and be there, try to be the and watch it the first time that it aired. This is huge, right? So again, laying the groundwork. So we want to talk about sort of the impact in terms of the artistry. If you're looking at this album, you're hearing a continuation of what you see in Control, but it's being pushed even further in terms of harmonies, in terms of sort of instrumentation and content. It really is an achievement for her. And kind of skipping ahead, what we see not too much later is that she has, Control. She has Rhythm Nation. She has the Janet album, which comes, and then on and on. And then still very early in her career, people are already beginning to celebrate her legacy. And she's still at the top, right? When MTV does their video icon award for her, the first one that they did, where you have Macy Gray, you have Aaliyah, you have Pink, you have Usher, you have Destiny's Child, you have, I'm going to show a clip because I watched it today. It pissed me off, but I'm going to show it to you. You have all these artists, Outkast, you have all these artists celebrating Janet Jackson. All the top artists of the time celebrating her, and she's still on top. She has the All For You album out at the time, and that song is a #1 song. So she's not like a has-been legacy artist or something like that. She is still at the pinnacle, being celebrated for a body of work, for her career that is still in gear. That is the impact of Janet Jackson. Again, reiterating this because I think it's important to have this context if we're going to later talk about sort of the undoing or the attempted. I'm not going to say it was attempted. If there was an undoing of what she had built upon. So let's have a little fun. Take a look at this. This is the MTV Icon Award. And, my producer is going to cue it up / my left hand, which I am not left-handed, is going to get it popping. And here we go.
Out there, political or personal, Janet's videos have signaled each of her many creative reinventions while also inspiring a new generation of young artists.
When I saw The Pleasure Principle, it inspired me to get into this business.
It was just solely me and not a group of dancers.
And I was a little girl trying to do every single move that she was doing.
Maybe that's why it stands out in people's minds, because it was just me. I don't know. But that comes up a great deal.
When it comes to dance, Janet sets the standard, which is why so many others have tried to follow in her dazzling footsteps.
Just check. Are we ready?
Please welcome Aaliyah.
The name Janet Jackson is synonymous with great dancing. I know her moves have influenced a lot of us in the industry. My personal favorite Janet video is All Right, which features Cab Calloway and has this really cool retro vibe and some amazing dance moves. To honor all the ways Janet has moved the world, please welcome some of today's finest movers and shakers, Pink, Usher, and Maya.
So what you have there is, again, sort of MTV, who later, I don't know if it was an official ban, but some version of a ban. They banned her, sort of not invited to the party for a while. And she was their first artist being honored as an icon, as a video icon, deservedly so. And you have Aaliyah, rest in peace, introducing her, talking about the influence. You see Jennifer Lopez talking about watching Janet and then wanting to get into the industry to do what she does. You see Britney Spears imitating the Miss You Much chair scene. You see NSYNC doing their thing with Bye Bye Bye, doing the choreographed music. Lil' Kim, you see all these artists who have been influenced by what what Janet is doing. Again, what you're seeing there is like, this is somebody who influenced the entire industry, right? You know, this isn't a flash in the pan. This is somebody who should have been easily been able to be easily dismissed by the music industry. And if I can get this to play, I want you to see this because I think this is important for context later. I watched it twice. It kind of it pissed me off, but I'm going to see if I can cue it up. So I'm watching the MTV Icon Awards, and let's see if I can do it. Work with me. Share. Cancel. Share. Video file. Let's see if I can pull it up. IMG. Hey everybody, is this it? Let's see. It's not letting me share. So I'm gonna find another way to pull up. But I'm watching the MTV Icon Awards, and I see Justin Timberlake come out, and I have not watched this show since it first, aired, and I hadn't remembered who all the art. I remember the dance breakdown. I remember Beyonce and Destiny's Child doing their thing for Janet. Oh, I found it. I think I can share it from here. Is this it? Oh, that's not it. But there's this idea. Oh, here we go. All right, I'm going to stop talking. I want you to watch this. And then I want to circle back to sort of why this is all important, to really take in sort of her place. Here she is being celebrated as an artist by MTV. By this point, she's had these world tours, multiple #1 hits, multiple #1 albums, is a video icon, is an icon, period. And she's been celebrated, and I would say early in her career. Yeah, so let's watch this. Let me cue it up. If everything can go right, I'll cue it up. Let's see. Is my mic muted? Let's see. Oh, I'm going to be so mad if it says my mic is muted. If you haven't actually been listening to me, I'm going to yell. All right. Share screen. Hi, everybody. Share screen. We keep it real on these streets. Chrome tab. Bam. Share. All right. So let's take a look at this, and then I was so mad watching this. I forgot. I had it completely erased this from my memory. Where's the sound? Hold on. We got to have some sound on this. Oh, I know what I did. Give me 1 second. I'm going to unshare it. Stop share. Boom, 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 boom. We're all friends, right? You can tolerate some. This is not even a glitch. It's just how it has to be since I'm doing this by myself and queuing up. Somebody wants to be my producer, give me a holler. You can produce this remotely from where you are. Make it a little bit easier on me. So share audio. Bam. Here we go. Play.
We love Janet for a whole lot of reasons.
Yeah, like she's fine.
The things we just said could sing. Janet took us with her on the Velvet Rope tour and taught us what being professional is all about.
Yeah, like how to be fine.
One of our favorite Janet Jackson videos is That's the Way Love Goes, because that video had the coolest, most laid-back groove.
Yeah, she's fine in the video too. Fine.
I'm a fast forward.
I like to watch us playing. Baby, you've got on what I like. That's the way. Come closer, baby, closer. Reach out and feel my body. I'm gonna give you all my love. Oh, sugar, don't you hurry. You've got me here all night. Just close your eyes and hold on tight. Oh, yeah. Oh, baby, don't stop, don't stop. I go deeper, baby, deeper. You feel so good, I'm gonna cry. Gonna take you there. Oh, that's the way. That's the way love goes. That's the way love goes. It goes. That's the way. That's the way it goes.
Sorry, I messed it up. Really bad.
Coming up, an all.
So I'm watching that and I'm like, it's even more upsetting when you look back at the whole thing with Justin and Janet. He was not even like watching. Let me gather myself. The ways in which he was propelled. He was a student of Janet, Michael and other artists. He was a student, She took them on tours. She mentored him. This isn't just a performance, right? This is an icon that opened the door for him to be part of her world. And you watch this and you can see, he's so, objectifying her. She's fine. She is. But he's being his Justin self. And they're singing her song. And it's like, and you see him hug her. It's like there is a relationship there. There is what seems to be a respect, and how easy it was for him to climb over her. Like I've gone back and looked at a few videos recently where I've been like, his disrespect of her wasn't some sort of benign silence where he just didn't know what to say or he didn't know how to approach the situation. He actively engaged in the disrespect of her. And it's even made worse when you see how connected they were. And that even though he was a star in the rise and all that, and by the time they make it to the Super Bowl, he's a star in his own right. He's her guest at the Super Bowl. He's Janet Jackson's guest. She gave him a platform, biggest show on television that year. She gave him a platform. And then he did what he did. So it's wrong on so many levels. And then I stumbled across, because I did a talk I did a talk yesterday, and I have been doing some research for the class, and I've had to kind of go back and look at some of the things that I had completely forgotten about as it related to Justin and Janet, and sort of how he behaved after, the Super Bowl. And I'm going to show this one thing since I'm here, since I'm in this mood now. And then we're going to circle back and talk about how great Janet is. But I think this is important, because we're talking about all the things that we just talked about with Control over the last few weeks, Rhythm Nation, which is just out of this world success in terms of sale and artistry. This woman who is an icon for across the board for all people. I think knowing that, having that context, is not just race and gender and class. It is just like, it doesn't matter who you are, you can be displaced in this way. This is somebody who was at the top of their game and just completely treated disrespectfully. I'm going to see if I can pull this up real quick, and this will be the last of this until we really start getting into the sort of corporate shutdown and talk about the ways that impacts Black professionals, Black artists, that sort of things. But hopefully by the time we get there, we have done enough of this to deal with that. But I do want to show this clip, because I forgot to show it last week when we had this conversation. So I'm going to pull this up so we can take a look at it. But this is Justin Timberlake in 2008. He hosted the ESPY Awards to a crowd of people who laughed and clapped along and thought it was cute, thought it was funny. While he, did I show this? I don't think I showed it. And if I did, I'm going to show it again. While they clapped and laughed along. So I'm gonna play this, and then we'll come back.
The Super Bowl, the most hallowed ground, all professional football. Okay, that was me. What do you want? Well, I didn't think anybody was watching. It was a wardrobe malfunction. I wanted to be the only dude at a football game to get to second base. No? Well, I love sports. That's right, people. Come on, get out the seats. Let's go.
You know what? Like, he can keep that apology. I mean, he can grow and all that jazz, but just like, again, what is he apologizing for? I said this before, it was gross negligence. If you look at those two clips back to back, here's this woman who has built this legacy so early in her career, a legacy that you have stepped onto to propel yourself. And then you don't even look back and and to take care of, to acknowledge, to try to be there for somebody who didn't have to, but who kind of opened the door for you. It's just so disrespectful. And I'm glad he's had whatever epiphany, but it means absolutely nothing to me. And he wasn't apologizing to me, but I just sort of in context, when I look at it in terms of how easily Black professionals in any sphere can be dismissed at any time, it's just upsetting, right? I'm a fan of Janet Jackson, but I'm also a fan of many other people, friends, other professionals, other artists who have been at times treated this way. I've been treated this way, by people who I've helped, right? And it's just a really interesting thing to watch him be able to do what he wants and then, 20 years later almost say, my bad, right? But all of that aside, what's left for me and for millions of other people is the music and the art, the artistry, just all of it. And there's absolutely no denying it was there. I think some of my students are just coming to the realization that, the impact of her music, how good the music is. They're listening to some of the music for the first time. And I think that's a good thing. And I have some students, one student, I'm not even going to say some. I have one student, hey, what's up? I'm not going to name you, who talked about, Janet's voice and, comparing her to other artists, saying that, they had never thought of her in the pantheon or at the top of lists as the way they have thought of other artists. But again, I even think that's limiting. And it's just like, do you have to be Monica, who I love, doing runs on every song? Can you be somebody else who sings differently? Can you be somebody else who does something different and still sort of be on those lists? Because what you're doing clearly is other people are following it for a reason. That is not just a product, just sort of being pieced together without any input or any thought about the outcome. This is somebody who created a lane that other people hopped in. When Britney Spears started to take off, I was struck by, and this is me not being a professor, this is me just being somebody who enjoys music and music criticism. I was struck by how many people referred to her as the next coming of Madonna. When so clearly what we really saw in Britney Spears was influenced by Janet Jackson. It's right there. I've gone to a confession. I've seen Britney Spears in concert, right? It was a Janet Jackson show. And that's fine. I enjoyed it. I had a good time, right? But I've been surprised by how many people, I was surprised by how many people made that connection just jumped over Janet, went to Madonna. And it's nice to see in that MTV icon that they made that connection, but they only made that connection because Britney does that routine with the chair, which looks like Miss You Much. But even before we get there, we see Janet's influence. You can see her influence on Lady Gaga. When you look at the tours, you can see it in Katy Perry. Janet, if you look at the early reviews for Rhythm Nation, what they're talking about is the use of video screens and the use of theatrics. She brought that. She was bringing that to mainstream venues, concert venues, big venues, that sort of use of bringing the music video to life, adding a theatrical element, and then other people kind of pulled that in and took it in a different way. And again, not always the credit for it, but it doesn't matter. That's why this class exists. I'm giving her credit for it. And I think it's important to have this discussion, because I think just like with film, television, acting, there are so many other talents that get left out of the discourse. No matter how great they've been, they get left out of the discussion. And I think it's important for those of us who know better to remind people of, to teach people of those particular legacies. So that's what I see this class as, is not just me being a fan of Janet Jackson and saying, hey, everybody come get on board. It's me saying, you can't talk about pop music right now without talking about Janet Jackson, period. You can't talk about R&B without talking about what Janet Jackson did for R&B music, right? You can't leave her out of the equation because it's ahistorical. And the evidence is there. Spend a minute on YouTube and you see it. I recommend, if you haven't listened to Rhythm Nation from beginning to end, I just cracked my knuckle, sorry, my notebook. If you haven't listened to Rhythm Nation from beginning to end, give it a listen. If it's your first time, I would love to hear what your thoughts are. And pay attention, because it's like everyone immediately focuses on Janet's dancing and fast songs, but I would argue that Love Will Never Do and Come Back to Me hit as well, and you want to pay attention to them. She has some amazing slow songs. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna jump off of Rhythm Nation for a minute to close it out. Like, let me see if I can. I'm gonna pull this. I love Janet Jackson slow songs, and I think she doesn't always get enough credit for her voice. I think Janet has a beautiful voice. I think Janet does amazing harmonies. I think if you're looking at Janet Jackson's sort of top songs and the things that people really kind of get into, you're looking at That's the Way Love Goes, which is a nice mid-tempo bop. Funny How Time Flies, which is a slow song. Let's Wait a While, slow song. I had a discussion yesterday and someone brought it up, and I often talk about it, is like she has amazing harmonies. And we don't often talk about that enough. Again, we are now, because I think it's important. So if I can pull this puppy up, I'm gonna, and this is not on the Rhythm Nation album, but this is my class, and I get to have a little fun. So this is one of my favorite Janet Jackson songs. It is from her 2008 album called Discipline. Feedback was on that. This was a single. It did all right in sort of the Midnight Storm spaces. But it didn't become a smash hit or anything, but it got some radio play. Before I go there, thanks for listening. I hope I didn't ramble. I hope you're still here. Rhythm Nation is important. I think it speaks to when an artist does what they want to do. She wrote a socially conscious album for where she was as a young woman at that time. She still blended in all sort of the melodies and all the things you need to have sort of pop hits. And she did what the label didn't think she was able to do. And she had a smash album. She went on tour and killed it. Redefined what a tour looked like, what a performance on tour could look like for a solo artist. Bringing video and other elements to the screen to live performances that had not been there before. She owned MTV during this period and BET, and won so many awards for this record. And I keep going to the Beyonce analogy because I can't think of anybody else right now who, especially for my students, can understand the impact. It was just her in that league, really. I mean, there were other people, Whitney Houston, but they were doing different types of music, right? Like Janet was in a league of her own in the ways that I think a lot of people believe, Beyonce is. But I would argue that Beyonce is there, and so is Rihanna. And so, thankfully we get to have more than one at a time now, right? But for those who need that comparison, we're talking about somebody who had command of the world's attention as a Black woman, as a Black artist for a long time, and still had it at the point in which she's on the Super Bowl, which is, almost 20 years after Control is released. She's still at the top. The decline that Janet had did not come because people stopped caring about the music. It happened because corporations decided to block her music from being played on radio. And I would argue that, we didn't own enough spaces to continue to uplift her in a way that and Demita Joe, the album that was released when she was banned, still sold about 2 million copies, but it didn't do the numbers that I think it would have done if she hadn't been thrown under the bus after that particular incident. But my point is that she was still almost 20 years in at the top. And only that decline is an artificial decline that was forced upon her. It wasn't a natural decline where it's like, oh, okay, she's been out for a long time. We're not going to play her as much, and there's not as much interest. She was still it. We were poised at that moment, I believe, to have two. Not at the time, wouldn't have been Rihanna and Beyonce. At that particular moment, it would have been Janet. And then you start to see other artists now kind of becoming famous. Then it might have still been Janet and somebody else at that time, but then that decline was so steep, it was almost like the attention just kind of shifted away. But what we know now, especially if you're in my class, you're somebody who we're not familiar with her career. And if you're a fan, you know all of this. You just kind of sat through it because we're friends and you wanted to kind of support me. But my students and people who are just kind of curious and popped in, what we understand now that this wasn't just a hit album after Control, which was a hit album. This was a statement. This was somebody cementing their place in music history by the age of 24. Right. So, all right, I'm going to play this and then, stay around. Just give it a listen. My argument is that Janet has some of the best melodies. You can't really get with her. I'm going to play this and just listen to what she's doing here. And if you haven't gotten, this is one of my favorite songs called Can't Be Good. This is the acapella version on Discipline. I'm going to spend some time in a couple weeks talking about the Demeter Joe album, which was the album that came out right after the Super Bowl. But go listen to some of the album cuts, right? We all know Nasty and all that. But if you haven't, go listen to, you have Spotify, you have Apple Music, you can listen to it. Go listen to it. Go pick up Discipline. Go listen to the whole record. She still puts together. She continued to put together, even through Unbreakable, which came out in 2015, whole albums that connect. So this is one of my favorites. Just listen to the harmonies, and I will see you next time. If you want to reach me, you know where to find me at philbranch.com. If I can find the thing, or Phil Branch at Twitter or IG. I'll catch you next time.
This can't be, this can't be, this can't be, this can't be. This can't be, this can't be, this can't be, this can't be, this can't be. This can't be good. What's going on? What's happening to me? Promise myself that would never let this be. Never again. Never that pain.
Listen to those harmonies, y'all.
But I've never been the same. Where I feel right now.
I'm playing this whole thing, so if you gotta go ahead. But I'm gonna rock this out, and I'm gonna go on home and put my babies to bed because it's bedtime.
Feelings are flood. I'll fight it if I can, but I don't know if I should. One thing I know, this can't be good, babe. This can't be, this can't be, this can't be, this can't be, this can't be. This can't be, this can't be, this can't be good. This can't be, this can't be good. This can't be good. Oh no, tell myself I never, tell myself I never would. They can fall and never
right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me. I will catch you next time on Isolation. Oh, this is not my podcast. I'm going to say catch you next time on Isolation Be Like. See, Jana got me in my head. I'll see you next time for on Janet. Race. What is the name of the class? I love this song so much. I have gotten into my on Janet Jackson. Race, gender, and wardrobe malfunctions. I love this song. Buy the CD. Don't download it. Just go buy all of them. Talk to you later.
This can't be good. This can't be good.